Hey, brother.
How's it going, brother? It's good to see you, man.
Yeah. It's been a little while since we've sat down and created the space, so looking forward to getting into it again.
Me too, man. Me too. And yeah, let's just kind of update people a little bit on what's been going on. What's been happening with you, man? Where you at?
Yeah, so after the wedding, I was in Arizona for a week. I think that was the last episode we did. Um, and then been in Colorado since, back working with my brother-in-law and living with my sister and brother-in-law and learning a lot about climbing trees and taking care of them, as we discussed right before we started this recording. Um, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been challenging, definitely, um, but been enjoying it for sure.
Good, man. Glad to hear that. Yeah, I'm excited to catch up soon, man. We're both in the same state, which is awesome. Um, I'm currently in Durango, Colorado, for everyone listening. I am starting my river rafting season as a guide. To be my second year doing this. Pretty much when we started this podcast was last year at this time, which is super
Mhm.
cool. So it brings back some really cool feelings, and I mean, I really enjoy it here, dude. It's so much fun. So much fun getting on the river, guiding, and it's just a cool community, man. That's what it's something I love about these seasonal jobs is just like, I mean, there's so many things I love about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. But one of the things is like the community. You get to meet new people every year, but then you get to reconnect with the homies that were there the year before. And um, so, yeah, man, I'm really excited about this. It's going to be great. Um, and then a couple of weeks ago, something that we did, I was able to run my first retreat, which was epic, dude. Um, I spent some time at a friend's house recently. He has a nice piece of land just like an hour outside of Austin. And after spending time there, I realized that like this is the physical space that I would like to do retreats at. That's really the only box that I hadn't ticked yet because this is a desire I've had for a really long time now. And I've shared it with you a little bit. And so after spending time with him, I was like, hey man, I just want to share this with you. You don't have to respond. And so I just shared with him like what I was thinking, what I was feeling. At the end of it, he's like, man, I'm all in. Let's do this. I was like, all right, sweet. So yeah, we ran our first retreat. It was a men's retreat. It was so beautiful, so powerful, transformative, um, calming, restful. I mean, just so many great things. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about the spaces that I love to create and how they may be different from other spaces that I've been a part of, but at the same time, that's how I want to do them, and that's what I enjoy. And it seems that a lot of people enjoy it too, so that's great. So yeah, looking forward to doing more of those. The next one we're looking to do will be towards the end of this year, early next year, as obviously I'll be, seasonal work for the rest of the year, river rafting, hunt guiding, and stuff like that. And so, but yeah, I'll keep people up to date with what I'm doing, and if anyone's interested, definitely I'll let you know dates and what we're doing. So yeah, we can see each other in the physical and get to share space together. That'd be great. So yeah, man, that's what's been going on with me.
Yeah, those photos and videos that you sent of that space were unreal. I mean, the pyramid and the water running through the caves kind of system or whatever it was underneath, and the
Dude.
hot tub, like the whole space looked incredible.
It's got a fucking pyramid, man. Are you serious, dude? Got a pyramid on his land, and the pyramid is the same latitude as the pyramid of Giza. Like, there's so much love and effort and like energy has been poured into this land. It's unreal, man. And so, yeah, it's just such a beautiful space holder for what we're creating. And so, yeah, man. Um, something that I would love to talk about today is a subject that we've kind of gone back and forth with. It's a heavy subject, man. I think it's an important one though, and I think no more important than right now with what's going on in the world and stuff like that. And so I want to talk about the concept of right and wrong, good and bad, good and evil, stuff like that, right? And just break it down in a way that I feel is easy to understand, or at least easier to understand. um, and just share perspective and experience with people. And so the way I kind of want to express this and communicate this is talking about reality and, well, talking about things in like two different planes, right? So like we have a relative plane, and the relative plane is pretty much like where good and bad, right and wrong are experienced, and like our experience is very real and they matter a lot. Okay. Let's call that the relative plane. Okay. And then I want to talk about the second plane, which is the absolute plane. And so the absolute plane would be where we get to pull back far enough and it's just life, being life in infinite expressions and nothing really matters. Right. And I want to set the tone and I want to set the episode up this way is because they're both simultaneously always here and always happening, and they're really important when it comes to talking about like right and wrong. Because I think that this is where like a lot of people find misalignment and end up arguing with other people because ultimately it's hard to express both in the same moment. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to break them down into each, and then we're going to talk about like how to bring it home, right? And how to pretty much embody and live your life within both of these planes, right? Because they're both important. I mean, they're both important to hold lovingly, and neither cancels the other out, right? Like it just can be very challenging to hold space for both of them in the same moment. And so that's where we're going to start off with. Anything come up for you so far, Dan?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to share with everyone. I think this is the topic. Well, other than our first episode, I think this is the one that we recorded and decided not to post and
Yeah.
decided to go back. So I didn't know if you had any like uh you know, I guess motivation or thoughts as to why we didn't post the first one. I know like we necessarily weren't on our game, but
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So, yeah, I mean, this was the only episode that we ever recorded that we didn't end up um, posting. And so, pretty much, I remember hitting up Dan and saying, "Hey, man, I want to do that one again." And the reason I wanted to do it again was because I was able to reflect on like my energy in that space and where I was coming from. And I felt that I needed to be in more of a calm, loving place rather than an amped up, loving place. um, to be able to truly express um, myself in the most authentic way possible. And so that's why.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also just want to recognize this lighting that's coming in on my face from the just so we're not ignoring it, so we can
Yeah.
acknowledge it because
I
it's wild.
appreciate you acknowledging it. I appreciate you acknowledging and bringing that up. Um, and so let's get going, dude. And so we'll talk about the relative plane to start off with. So the way I kind of start off is like the human mind naturally divides the world into two categories, right? Like right and wrong, good and bad, us and them. And I feel like ultimately this is more of a genetic thing or a survival thing, right? Like it helps us to navigate survival and social order. And what we consider to be right and wrong often changes, right? Based on our culture, circumstances, religion, beliefs, life experience, right? Yet everyone is certain that their perspective is the right one. And, when I say that, what that makes me think about is like me as a teenager just arguing my ass off with people, dude. No, man, like this is what it is.
Mm,
This is the right answer, and so on and so forth. Just, man, fighting to the death, it felt like at some points. Um, and when I think about it now, I mean, the question that comes up for me is like, what does that tell us, right? Like, what does it tell us that within the relative world, we all have different ideas of what is right and wrong, good and bad, and they come from pretty much all those different things that I just mentioned, right? Including our childhood, right? So, like from childhood, we're rewarded for good behavior and punished for bad behavior. And let's not get it twisted, man. Like those things, they pattern us, right? They program us and they're embedded deeply within our subconscious. And so what does that tell us? What does that tell me? I mean, for me, that tells me that within this relative plane, based off our experience and also what we're bringing in to this world through our body and our genes, because this body is also memory that we're bringing things into this world in. I say that we all have perspectives. We all have perspectives based off our experiences and what we bring into this world. And this idea of like trying to enforce them in a way that doesn't allow for other people to express theirs, I just feel isn't the most serving way to go about it, right? It's just interesting that, you know, when I was younger, I wasn't aware of the fact that I could have a conversation about my perspectives with someone who didn't have the same perspective, and it didn't have to be an argument.
Mm.
Like when I was younger, it always became an argument, dude. And I realize why now, because I was very heavily like identified with my stance on right and wrong, good and bad. Like I had a very strong identification with my beliefs. And so because I was identified with them, I felt like I had to defend them and I felt like I had to fight for them. But that obviously isn't the case now. But that's kind of comes up, that's what comes up for me when I ask that question. I mean, what comes up for you when I ask the question, like, what does this tell us?
Um, well, yeah, I just want to go back to the whole concept of like, the idea of right and wrong. And, as I shared earlier in previous episodes, like I was raised, in the church, and then I had this kind of realization about sort of what we're talking about right now, where, if I was born, on the other side of the world, I would have a completely different perspective. And so that's where I kind of, and I don't get me wrong, I think religion has its place, and I think there's a lot of beautiful things that come through like the classic version of religion and Christianity. But that's where I started having questions and started really challenging myself on those beliefs. Um, because yeah, it's just hard for me to reconcile like just like me saying like, oh, this is how you get to heaven, or this is how you achieve um, enlightenment or whatever the case may be. It's like it's so hard for me to say like this is right and I know this is right, because who really knows?
Yeah, I mean, I remember having the exact same thought, dude. I remember, so, growing up as an Italian, most Italians are Catholics. A lot of them that have like gone to different countries now aren't as practicing as they used to, but they grow up and they baptize their children and stuff like that, right? And that's what I was. And so I went to a Catholic school at a young age. But I remember that exact same question. I remember like at some point having the question like, okay, so I have these beliefs now because I was born into them. And in Catholicism, like this idea of like heaven and hell, and people go into hell if they don't accept Jesus Christ as their savior, knowing that like if I grew up in a Muslim country or if I grew up in a Buddhist country, that obviously I wouldn't take Jesus Christ as my savior, then that means I'm going to hell. I was like, dude, that's very interesting that the same person that created the earth and created everything also created that system. That's very interesting. Um, and anyway, and so I remember having that exact same thought. Um, and it was really important, not only for the whole religious side of things, but just life in general, right? Like this idea of like, man, we are vastly, um, maybe vastly isn't the word. Well, let's use the word vastly, seeing as though it's there. We are vastly like on so many different parts of the world, and based on those parts of the world, our influences are so different, and can have us grow up in so many different like belief systems, cultures, so on and so forth. And I feel that it's so beautiful because like if we're open to it, right? Like if we're open to the conversation, if we're not identified with our beliefs or our thoughts, then dude, like the amount of knowledge that we can like receive into this body is endless. And that's what I found like so much like joy with in this part of my life is just like being curious, like so curious and completely like detached. And because of that, man, I can use other people's experience to learn from in really beautiful ways and then choose if I want to walk down that path.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I can resonate with pretty much everything you said. It is a journey that we're on, and I've always been wary of people that are super confident and saying like, this is the way, or this is what you need to do, or this is correct, or this is the healthy thing. It's like
Yeah.
all these people that are so confident. I'm like, oh, you know what? Now it makes me question.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I mean, that's why I think it's important for all of us to, to continue to be the student, you know. And it's
Mm,
like, man, we're going to pick up so many cool like teachings along this life, but ultimately, can we continue to view ourselves as the student and never the master? Knowing that if we ever did become a master of something, it was only because we were a keen student. And so can we just continue to be keen students, And if that's the case, then like what do we have to share? Well, we have to share our experience. That's what we have to share. That's all we can share, dude. We can share our experience. And allow others to find their way rather than trying to tell them that your experience is the way,
mm.
right? Yeah, definitely always wary of the false prophets. Um, and so to relative reality. So yeah, so like if this is all true, then like what should guide this? And how do we know what is right and good on the relative plane? Right, which I think is a really important question. Because on the relative plane, again, we're using the words good and bad. On the relative plane, there is a good and a bad, but it is the good and the bad is what we say it is. And so if it's what we say it is, and we have all these different influences, then, what have I found to be my compass? I think is the best question.
Mm.
What I've found to be my compass, and the way I want you to think about it is like imagine like each frequency you are, right? So like imagine this idea that all around us right now are like different frequencies. And within us, we can create different frequencies, like the frequency of love, the frequency of hate, the frequency of jealousy. I mean, all these different frequencies, right? We also call them emotions. I also call them frequencies. And so, like, let's say we have all these frequencies, and based off the frequency we're in, then we're able to pick up on certain things, kind of like a radio station, right? Like, if you put it on like 99.9, then you're not going to be hearing like what's on 104.2, for example, right? And so the way I like to think about this is like that's my compass, right? Like I attune myself to the frequency of love, and then I let that be my compass. I let that be my guide, right? Rather than my thoughts and beliefs, right? Now, I'm not here to say that they don't ever direct me. They do, man. They direct me a lot, right? I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is when it comes to being able to guide myself through this life, what am I continuing to focus on? And what do I desire to continue to be my most, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when something happens again and again and again, my most, let's just use the word
Yeah.
powerful, consistent. Thank you very much. My most consistent guide, I want to be my heart, right? And that doesn't push like other things to the side. It doesn't mean that my ego can never serve me. It doesn't mean that sadness can never serve me. Sadness is a part of my heart. Like, and we're going to get into this, but all of that is a part of your heart, which is super interesting. All of that is a part of love, which I'm going to express more about in this episode. But I go to my heart. I used to go to my head, but then I started like I was faced with certain experiences that my mind, my past experiences, and my assumptions of the future could not figure out, dude. And so then I realized my heart was the place to go for all things. And so, um, I mean, what has been your experience, Dan? Like when it comes to differentiating, like in your life, what feels aligned, what feels good, what feels bad, or what is good, what is bad? Like what's been your experience?
Well, I think I was very similar to you, where and I still do, but my default is to go to my mind. Um, but again, just like you said, it doesn't always. I mean, I guess it could always lead you to where you're looking to go, but it's not always the most direct path. And sometimes even when I would figure that path out with my head, um, I wouldn't feel it, even though like I would understand it, I wouldn't feel it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, like I said, I'm not perfect. I definitely still go to my head a lot.
Yeah.
But I've found that, yeah, when I go to my heart to look for the answers to things, then, um, it's more consistent. It's more, and I believe it a lot more, and I can trust it, and I don't question it as much. Whereas if my head tries to figure all these things out, then I always have these questions like, oh, what if this and what if that?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Yeah, and so like let's bring a little bit more clarity to that, right? So like me and you have been talking in this way, like heart and head as if they're separate. And so like what I would want people to understand is that it's not as though my mind isn't involved in this process or Dan's mind isn't involved in this process. It definitely is. It's just that the heart is the master and the mind is the servant, right? So meaning that our heart is communicating with our mind, and then our mind is pretty much filtered through our heart, I think is the best way to understand it. So you're still using your mind for sure, but again, it's through your heart, right? And it's a distinctive difference. For those of you that are hearing these words and have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, we'll kind of like explain a little bit more of it in today's episode, like what that means and how to live from there and how to cultivate that relationship. And just so you know, everyone already has that relationship. It's just how much energy we put in towards it and stepping into faith at first for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
really quick, what comes up for me when I think about my heart, it's more of a feeling, and when I think about my mind, it's more of like a thought
yeah,
to give a little bit more clarity.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the heart feels like that intuitive kind of experience, whereas the mind is just like, all right, let me fucking make a list of all these things and figure out the best way
Rational.
possible. Kind of, yeah, rationality, right?
Mm.
For sure. So, um, some other things with relative reality. So, like within relative plane, right? Everything we call evil is super important. So, like everything we call evil in the world, it lives in us too, right? And this is really important to like understand. Like, no matter what you've experienced, no matter what you've read, no matter what you've seen, and no matter who you've judged as like you are evil, you are bad, like all of that lives in you also.
Mhm.
It's not helpful to create separation in those moments and be like, oh, I'm not like that. Like I could never be like that. It's actually very powerful and very liberating to realize that you're all of it, man. You're all of it. All of the shit that's going on in the world today, you're capable of all of that. It's not that you're going to express that, but you're capable of it, right? And I think that's really important for us to understand our power, like actually what we are capable of on both ends of what we would consider to be the spectrum of life, right? And not shy away from that, like, oh no, no, like that's not me, and I don't have that, and I could never do that.
Mm.
It just creates separation and doesn't allow us to fully understand and embody like what we are as a piece of life and as creators. Yeah,
Yeah, what comes to mind when you bring that up is something that we've talked about before about like, relationships and partners and friends, and a lot of the things that frustrates you most about someone else is just something that you haven't really resolved within yourself. And
yeah,
um, I mean, I find that to be true. The more and more I reflect on it, the more things that frustrate me about, Roxy or even my mother or,
mhm,
whoever I'm around. It's like, oh, if you stop and reflect, it's like, well, that's something that I haven't worked on and resolved it within myself. And I'm passing judgment onto them for having that trait or that, reaction or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I've just, the more I sit down and reflect on it, the more I realize how true that is.
yeah, exactly. And again, that can get really hard when we're talking about like what we consider to be very bad things and very evil things, and that's something that I want to talk about once we get into the absolute plane a bit. But one of the last things that comes up for me when thinking about the relative plane is like just something to mention. That's something that I've noticed in my life that was very helpful for me. And that's that, like, a spiritual practice or any type of practice, man, that only affirms and appreciates like the light is imbalanced and not ultimately serving, right? It's important to be able to balance out all of it with what we consider to be the darkness, right? So, again, good and bad, both those contrasts. It's really important to not avoid either or not see one as like, oh, this is so righteous and so amazing, and no, this is not. Again, it's the same thing when we don't acknowledge all parts of us, right? And well, whatever we resist persists. And so if you really desire liberation, if you really desire to love, to really be able to love everyone, then this is really important. Otherwise, it's pretty much impossible. So
Love it.
Yeah. Um, anything before we go into the absolute plane, Dan, that comes up for you?
Not at the moment.
Cool, sweet. So absolute plane, right? So absolute plane, what's going on the absolute plane? So every soul is on a journey, and who am I to judge its journey? Pretty much, right? Hopefully you can all like connect to these planes and understand that you've experienced them both, and this maybe has caused some conflict or suffering within your life, right?
No, I want you to say that again because I think that's a very powerful thing.
Yeah. So every soul is on a journey, and who am I to judge its journey, right? It's really powerful, dude. It's huge, man. It's like we just want to imprint our journey onto everyone else's journey and just be like, no, man, you gotta walk this way. If you don't walk this way, it's not right. It's not spiritual. It's not loving. It's just insane, dude.
Wow.
Insane. It's wild.
But it's so difficult to like see that from, from a different perspective, than
Yeah,
your own. It's difficult to remove yourself and like actually not only understand that, but feel that.
yeah, yeah. Stick with the plane analogy, if that's the word. But like, on the relative plane, if you're just completely identified with the relative plane, fucking absolute plane doesn't even exist for you in that moment,
Mhm.
dude. You know what I mean? There is no soul on a journey, dude. In that, there's just rage,
Mhm.
there's just attachment, there's just all these other things, whatever it is, whatever comes up for you, as you identify with that plane. But yeah, I mean, it literally cannot exist. I've experienced that, dude. Like, man, my reality is only this, based off this belief, based off this judgment, based off this perspective. And this is why this is such an important topic, because it's like we can live in the paradox of both, and just so excited to continue and like share how that has opened up for me, and excited to hear your journey with that as well, dude, because I don't think we've spoken about this throughout the years, but like yeah, I'm really excited to it's been really cool hearing what you've had to share so far. So um I'll say it one more time. Every soul is on a journey. Who am I to judge its journey? Can you feel into that? Can you truly embody that? Right? Because that's part of it also, right? Um, everything that has happened and is happening is meant to be happening. This doesn't make it right or wrong. It just is, right? So again, you can start to see the paradox and the difference from the relative to the absolute plane, right? And just how different they are. And so you can see how that would be confusing if you're trying to accept both of those in the same moment, right? Um, and so Ram Dass would often use Hitler as an example to explain this concept. And pretty much he would say, like, there are two profound truths that exist simultaneously. And he would challenge you to hold space for each and not identify with one or the other. So the one truth is that what Hitler did was profound evil. The suffering was real. The deaths were real. The horror was real. There is no spiritual framework that makes this okay or acceptable or just part of the plan, right? So that's one. The other truth, from the perspective of the soul, the deepest level of what we are, even Hitler's soul is within the totality of existence, within the whole, not outside of it, on its journey, doing its thing, right? And both of these things are within this reality. And so, can we hold space for both of those? Is that possible? And for me, in my experience, the answer is yes, it is possible. Um, and I'll just kind of keep going and then we can open it up. And so, another example would be I want to ask the hardest questions, right? Because like I don't want to have this subject and like not be completely authentic and vulnerable, right? So I want to bring up the hardest things because these are the questions that I get from people when I sit down with them and hold space and have these conversations. So the other examples would be like, if I say love everyone, someone else says, does that include Hitler? If I say see yourself in all beings, does that include a rapist? If I say all souls are on the journey, does that include a murderer? Right? Like these are the questions that I think people are asking and want answers to. And again, I can only share from my experience, but to all three of those questions, yes, yes. Love everyone. Yeah, love Hitler. See yourself in all beings. Yes. See yourself in the rapist. Can you find so this is a question that I ask myself when it comes to bridging this gap, right? Because again, I've never raped anyone. I've never done mass genocide. I've never killed anyone. So these three experiences or roles that I'm talking about, I've never had. And so then how do I find myself in them? How do I bridge that gap? And so I ask the question, what would I have to think or believe in order to do that? What would I have to have experienced? Where would I have to be coming from in order to do those things? These are really relevant questions, man. They've been very relevant for me. They've allowed me to find compassion and love for people that I couldn't in the past. And they've allowed me to bridge that gap and realize that there is a piece of me in everyone. There is a piece of me in every expression of everyone. Um, and to kind of finish off this thought, it's like, so the answer is yes to all of those things, but maybe that doesn't mean what you think it means. What it doesn't mean is tolerance. Doesn't mean that I tolerate it. Doesn't mean that if I was to see someone being raped that I would tolerate that and just be like, oh, okay, part of the plan. No, I would not tolerate it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean passivity, right? So I'm not going to be passive to it. It doesn't mean the crimes don't matter. What it means is that responding from love rather than from hate, even towards this type of perceived evil, is both harder and much more powerful than responding from moral rage. That's what it means to me. And I have found when I am able to respond from love, then it is much more powerful in transforming that experience. And when I say love, please don't think love is the airy fairy, like, oh, I'm just going to go up and hug this rapist, or I'm just going to go. No, man, like love shows itself in the myriad of emotions because love is not an emotion. Love is not an emotion. Love will express itself through different emotions based on where we're coming from. All right, I could just keep going on and on, but I'm just going to pull back for a second. What's coming up, Dan?
What's coming up for me, and this people might have a rough time kind of seeing this analogy, but um, in my experience, right, when I was growing up as a teenager, even into my early 20s, uh, I reflect on some of the things I did. And, whether that's throwing eggs at cars or throwing whatever in, destroying property or, just the things that I participated in that like now I reflect on, I'm like, wow, like that wasn't, that didn't make me feel good. There was no reason for me to do that. Um,
Throwing eggs at cars didn't make you feel good? Come on, bro.
I mean, in the moment, of course
Yeah.
it did. In the
Thank
moment,
you. Thank you.
as an adolescent, I fucking loved it. The thrill of it, 100%. But as you go through life and you learn more about life and experience and and learn more about love and that state of being and how I truly want to behave and interact with the world, it's not aligned for me anymore, right? That was part of my journey. And again, it's a very far stretch from the analogy, but like everyone's going through their own journey, like we said, and who am I to judge? And so people were presented with different opportunities, and again, who knows, if I was presented with their opportunities, how I would react. I can't say for sure, and it's a crazy thing to admit, and um, but I mean, when I truly think about it, it's like when I was that age, I was doing things that I'm not aligned with now. Like, you know, um, so yeah, I mean, that's all off the top of my head. I had not thought about this before. So
No,
it's just,
dude, I mean, that's really relevant and beautiful because ultimately it's like, what I hear you say when you're expressing what you're saying is just like, dude, as soon as you start to like remove the separation between us and them, me and that, it's like, and you start to really just put yourself in the shoes of like everyone, it changes everything, dude. Like when you put yourself in the shoes of the person driving the car that you threw the eggs at, and that's you as well, changes everything, dude. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so when you put yourself in the shoes of everyone, all different types of people that have done all different types of things, I think that it scares people. People don't want to bridge that gap. People don't want to think themselves as the fact of like, oh, I have that within me. Just because you have something within you doesn't mean that you're going to do that or express that thing. But ultimately, think of it this way. Another thing that comes up for me is like, who are the most powerful healers for people that have been through a rape or have been through some type of like really, let's just say, heavy experience? Well, normally the people that have been through that experience and come out the other side, right? And it's like really interesting to think about because it's like, yes, like these are things that on the relative plane are very hard to receive, dude. Very hard to receive, whether you're the person actually receiving it or whether you're the person receiving it through another person that you know, right? So whether you know someone that's been raped or whether you've been raped or whatever it is, it's I don't even want to try and imagine how hard it is to receive, right? On both of those things. I've been one of those people. I've been the one that has received other people telling me their story again and again. I've received many of those stories. And it's never an easy thing to receive. At the same time, I've received those stories from people and also heard them explain how that, like, I've heard people turn around and say, I wouldn't change it if I could, which is, again, hearing that from a past version of myself. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? From hearing it from this version of myself, I understand that. And that doesn't mean that anyone that doesn't say that has had a crazy experience. Again, everyone's where they're supposed to be, and I get it. I'm here to say that like what it feels like for me in my experience is that from the um from the absolute plane, everything is a lesson. From the absolute plane, everything is a lesson. From the absolute plane, everything is happening the way it's supposed to. But that doesn't mean we should always feel that way, and that's the only plane that we should live on. We can't. We live on this physical plane, right? And so I don't feel that it is serving necessarily healthy to strive to live on the absolute plane because yes, although the absolute plane is also here on earth, so is the relative plane, so is everything else. And so I think it's important to balance it out and be able to stand for something and at the same time allow everything, if that makes sense. Stand for what you want to stand for, but be able to receive everything as part of this. And by doing that, the stance that you take is going to be so much more powerful, so much more powerful, so much more open, so much more loving, and so much more effective in creating what that stance desires to create. Because ultimately, if there is something or someone that you deem as bad or evil, what is the goal? Is the goal to just banish them and get rid of them and hope that that evil never returns, or is the goal to create a space that hopefully allows for that person to realize the light, right? And now be able to be one of those people that can help illuminate the light in others that have been in really dark places just like them. Um, Having people that have been to really dark places and then come out of that dark place, they're the most powerful people that walk this earth, I feel.
Agreed.
Um, they have a power that not everyone has. Um, and it feels very comforting for people that have been into a really dark place to be sitting next to someone that has also been there, but also now has walked out of it and knows the steps that they need to take. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what comes up for me, dude. I'm really feeling into this one, man. It's like, it's, I've felt I've felt the moments of frustration, uh, knowing that both of these planes exist, and I felt the resistance. I felt the egoic side of me trying to like live within the absolute realm and be like, dude, don't feel this. You don't need to feel this. You know what I mean? Like everything's all good, dude. Like what's going on in the world right now? All these people dying. Yeah, there's a part of me that's just like, Whatever's happening is supposed to be happening. But again, like there's also the other side of me where it's just like, dude, this is fucking horrible. And allowing myself to feel into that and allowing myself to feel into the absolute as well and merge those has been just very helpful for me, to not like spiritually bypass shit. I think we do that very, very easily. Um, and I don't want to. I want to do the best I can to be able to feel all of reality without allowing that reality that I experience to reprogram me in ways that I don't want to be reprogrammed, I think is a really cool way to say it. I've never said it that way before. And so what does that mean? That means that I want to understand and I want to see and I want to experience what's going on in the world. I want to experience the fact that people are dying everywhere. What I don't want is to watch that every single day, all day, to the point where now all my mind thinks is happening is that people are dying everywhere. Because while people are dying everywhere, there's also the other end of the spectrum happening, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's so easy, if we just watch news all day, or if we just like do certain things that just program with one side, it's really hard to like see the light as well, right? And so, like I said before, all light, not balanced, all dark, not balanced. Can we balance ourselves out and see the light and the dark, appreciate it all, and at the same time, allow love to guide us on how we want to now serve the world based on that, right?
Yeah. And I think if we can just step back and not, put things into boxes and just, connect with people on an individual basis
Yeah,
and not even worry about like right and wrong from our perspective and just like actually truly try to find a, connection with another human being. I think that's kind of the key in a lot of situations.
agreed. And so then how do we live this? How do we embody this? What does that look like in the real world? Um, so like love is not the absence of discernment. I really want to like stress that. I feel like for a lot of people, when they hear the word love, all they think about is like airy fairy. Oh my God, I love you. I love you too. Thank you. Thank you. And it's like, yes, that is an expression of love. But also an expression of love is seeing someone getting abused and running up to that person and making sure that they can no longer do what they were doing, right? And detaining them or doing whatever you need to do in order to create a safer space for everyone involved, right? That is
So
also love.
is there another way of saying that love is not the absence of discernment? Like, just,
So, so like, all right, so let's kind of, so love is not the absence of discernment, pretty much meaning that like discernment is me saying, hey, like, this is what like I think is right or wrong. This is what I think should happen right now, so on and so forth. So love is not the absence of that. Love can guide that. Love can guide your discernment, right? Tapping into your heart and allowing your heart to communicate with your brain and allowing that love to like come out and guide your actions, guide your decisions, guide what feels right in this moment, right? That's what I mean by that.
so yeah, basically love is not just accepting everything as it is.
Correct. Exactly. Love is not just accepting everything as it is and being like, oh, well, this is happening in front of me. This just must be happening. No, like you're also here. You're also a part of the equation. And
Mm.
so, what do you think should be happening in this situation? And where are you going to come from based, like, where are your actions going to come from? Right. Um, and again, this isn't something to be like, oh, I took the right action or I took the wrong action. It's challenging, man. Like learning what feels authentic for you is all on you, man. No one can guide you on that. No one can guide you on that. What you can be guided on is connecting to your heart. What you can be guided on is reflecting on what happened in that moment, reflecting where you were coming from, reflecting on your emotions. Like all those things are things that you can guide yourself on, and other people can guide yourself on. But truly, that kind of what feels like a knowing within you of like, hey, this is what I need to do in this moment. This is where I need to come from in this moment. That's all on you, man. That's your journey. Um, and I can share, what my experience has been like with that. And it's just been my ability to bring awareness in a moment. So, like, for example, right? Like, if you find yourself in a moral situation, right? Like, where you don't know what to do right now, I would like, and it wasn't, yeah, it's funny. And it wasn't like something immediate. Because if it's something immediate in that part of my life, I would just react, right? Like, you just react and you get shit done, right? And ultimately, that's what you desire. You desire the ability to react in a loving way. So, how do you create a reality where you react in a loving way? Well, reactions are also our ability to program. We can program reactions, right? Just like we program stories and so on and so forth. And so, where I used to react in one way, I can reprogram that to react in another way. So, how did I reprogram that? Well, I found myself in a moral situation that didn't require me to react straight away. Otherwise, I would have done my usual reaction. So if it didn't require that, then I would pause. I would pause before reacting. I would balance my nervous system. I would slow down my breath. 4 seconds in, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Just slow down my breath, right? That would balance my nervous system. Then I would put my attention on my heart. That would allow me to connect to my heart. Where you put your attention is where you send energy. So now I would start sending energy to my heart. Once my heart feels like it's awake, then I would ask my heart, hey, what do you think I should do? And your heart doesn't talk to you in language, it talks to you in feelings, kind of like what you said before, Dan. And it can be super confusing at first, man. Like, is this the feeling? Is this not the feeling? But again, that's your mind now trying to make a decision on what your heart has already told you. So, my invitation to you and what I found was that as soon as my heart says something, I don't ask my mind if that's what my heart said. I just react, man. And that
Yeah.
is what I use as my reaction, right? Trust that feeling that comes up. And if nothing comes up, cool. Leave a voice note with your heart. Literally, leave a voice note with your heart. That's what I do. I say, cool heart, thank you for listening. Whenever you have an answer, just let me know. Appreciate you. And then I would go on with my day. And then sometimes later on in the day, in a certain moment, my heart would be like, take this. And it would give me what I asked for. Maybe it's the next day, maybe it's a week later. Doesn't matter, right? And so that's what I mean. Like, that's how I put this into practice. And that's how I reprogrammed my reactions. And that's how I still continue to reprogram my reactions, because there are things that I haven't experienced yet that I react to in ways that I'm sure I didn't want to react to in that way. And so it requires awareness first, and then it requires your willingness to venture down different roads and feel uncomfortable, step in faith. Then once you've stepped in faith enough, um, it doesn't feel like you're stepping in faith anymore, but you are, because you're always stepping in faith. But you just trust your heart so much that you're just like, all right, cool, off we go. You know what I mean? And it gets rid of that, like, gets rid of that little feeling of like uncertainty. You're just like, all right, let's do this, right? Um, yeah. Anything come up for you?
Yeah, not really.
Cool, sweet.
Yeah.
So like, what are some other things that come up? What are some other things that come up? How do we? I think forgiveness is a really big thing I want to touch on. And I just want to say this out loud because this is what feels most authentic and vulnerable for me right now. Like, forgiveness is a hard thing for me to talk about because like that concept doesn't isn't really relevant in my life anymore. Because like once I forgived everything and everyone, since then there hasn't been anyone to forgive. But like if you're holding on to something like that you haven't forgived about yourself or someone else, um, this is really important. Like if and it's not about forgiving for them. Like forgiveness isn't a them thing. Forgiveness is a you thing, right? And so it's not for them, it's for you. And ultimately, the power that your forgiveness has is that now you're taking back your power. You're not giving away your power to people's expressions so that they can control you. It's like this person did something to me, and so now I'm going to hold on to that and never forgive them. And so now you're not free, right? You're not free and you're not able to shine your light in the way that you desire. And so,
Yeah, it's
can
like really you're keeping yourself locked down but in your mind you're saying it's them keeping you locked down,
correct 100%.
which is
Yes.
wild.
Which is wild. Yeah. It's like, it's that person. That person did that to me. It's like, actually, no, they didn't. They didn't actually do anything to you. They just did something and then you attached to it and identified with it. Let's bring up another thing that feels super relevant right now. So, like this idea of like trauma feels super relevant right now. As we're talking about this, people did this to me and that. And the way I want to talk about trauma is to also bring up another like very overly used word, I feel like, in the world, which is like healing. So let's talk about trauma and healing. The way I perceive and experience this currently within my life is that let's think about healing and trauma as a wound. So the trauma is the cut on my arm. Okay. The healing is now my body heals it and now I have a mark. So I no longer carry the trauma. I no longer carry the wound. Now it's been healed over, but it's still there. I can still see it, right? So now the wound that is left is my memory of the trauma, but it's healed, right? And so this is what I want to invite people into and express to people is like what I have noticed is this kind of toxic cycle of like never being healed. Like people are on this
Or needing to be healed.
yeah, or needing to be healed. Yeah, thank you, Dan, very much. Never being healed or needing to be healed. I'm broken, right? Or like going to, like 50 different ceremonies or retreats for like the same thing. And again, I'm not judging you. I'm just desiring to express a different opinion and a different perspective. Who is creating the wound? I'm creating the wound. Who is creating the healing? I'm creating the healing. Okay. And so ultimately, who decides like when I'm healed? I decide when I'm healed. Okay. And I know this sounds very simple. And again, I'm not trying to make it sound as if though like certain things don't take longer to heal. I get that. Completely open to that. I've experienced that too. But I also like want to challenge people on this idea of like fighting for your misery. Like if you're hearing this and you're like, no, man, like there's something wrong with me. Like, are you fighting for your misery right now? Like, is that what's happening, or is it true? Like, is there something that you still haven't really like hasn't completely healed over yet, or has it healed over and you're mistaking the memory of it as the wound, as the trauma? Like, oh, I can still remember it. So because I can still remember it and I can still feel the feelings that I felt during that experience, that I'm still traumatized or I still have trauma. I would challenge you on that ultimately because you can feel the feelings of any experience in the past,
Yeah.
of any experience in the past. And so, yeah, just some things that come up for me. Again, I understand trauma is a very real thing, not saying it's not. I understand healing is a very real thing, not saying it's not. These are all things that I continue to work through in my life also. But bringing balance to it, I really challenged myself. And so I also want to invite and challenge you. If the word challenge doesn't feel good, use the word invite. If the word invite doesn't feel good, you want more of it, use the word challenge. Okay, I challenge you. But yeah, that's kind of what comes up for me on those things. And I think they're super important as well. Um, when we when it comes to us navigating these two planes.
I love it. No, I love it. And definitely felt a lot of emotions when you were speaking, and a lot of things. Like I don't want to say I felt attacked, but as to a lesser degree, because I think everyone can feel that way, and it's not like, again, when you've gone through something, it's not like, oh, now I'm healed. It's like, oh, you might feel completely okay with it at this point, and then later on, you might be reflecting on it, and you might feel a completely different way. again, it's like we talked about earlier, like everyone's on their journey and
Yeah, and it's okay.
a moment to moment thing.
Yeah, and it's okay for the wound to open up again and then the wound heal again. Um, I guess what, I really want to express, and then I have a question for you, Dan. But I really want to express is just like, you're fucking so powerful, dude. Like, we're all so fucking powerful, man. And this idea that we're like, we're the victim and we should continue to be the victim, I would just question that. And I would ask you to continue to question that as well. Like when you witness yourself being a victim, where is this coming from? And is this serving you right now? I think are really important questions. And I say this from someone who is a victim and continues to be a victim at certain times, right? It's not like I'm never the victim. But I do my best to really bring awareness to that and not be the victim, knowing that I'm able to assimilate life, my life, and be in a much more aligned and vulnerable place when I realize the power and realize that I'm not a victim. And so that's more on the absolute side of things, if you were wondering. And so yeah. But Dan, what came up for you? So I think this is super important to share. Like when you said like there were times that you felt like attacked, or maybe not that word, but whatever. Like let's use that word. Like when you
Yeah.
felt attacked, like what came up for you? What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
Something we talked about in the past, just like social anxiety, like feeling somewhat inadequate around, large groups of people or, and at times you know, my rational brain is saying like who gives a fuck about what these people think, and even my heart says that when I check in with my heart. But there are times when I'm, placed in those situations, or when I choose to go out in those situations and I just react, or I, default to or revert to, that part of me that feels, inadequate around certain, and I attribute it to moving around when I was young and changing schools a bunch and always having to like make new friends, and um but I never really did a great job of it as a,
Hmm.
as a young child going through high school and whatnot. Because I moved states, and I'm sure many people have much different or, perceivably more difficult situations growing up than I did. But I went from elementary school to middle school and switched schools in that period. I went from middle school to high school, switched, um, you know, the trajectory where all my friends went. I went to a different one. And then halfway through high school, I moved again. So it was just like this constant thing of me having to make friends. And I never felt like I was all that good at it. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much what comes up for me is just, revisiting that
Gotcha.
part of myself.
That part of yourself, what does that part of yourself desire to feel?
Just comfortable and love, and just accepting everyone and loving everyone pretty much.
Does it also want to be understood for the way it feels now?
I mean, yeah, obviously I think you look for things to, yeah, accept the way you feel and understand and say it's okay, it's gonna be
Hmm.
okay, all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff.
Cool. Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, dude. I really appreciate it because it is the perfect example of what we're talking about, right? So we have these parts of us, and just like this paradox that we're talking about with the two different planes,
Mhm.
that lives within us in these different parts of us, right? So this part of you wants to feel comfortable, but at the same time, it wants to feel comfortable. It wants to feel heard for being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, you can see how that's a tough one, dude. That's a tricky one, right? And they're the things that I'm inviting people to feel into and bring to the surface, right? Because ultimately, both are fine. It's fine for you to feel uncomfortable, and it's also fine for you to feel comfortable. What I find to be like really helpful is allowing both, but also like how do I desire to feel, right? Because there's a part of me that desires to feel this way, and I want to acknowledge that part of me. I want to hear that part of me. I want to hold that part of me. I want to comfort that part of me. And at the same time, I want to create a safe enough space to where that part of me can now feel comfortable and safe. And like you said, it's not always going to be that way. But in order to talk about these things, this is the only way. You talk about the paradox, we talk about both sides. And so thank you for bringing that up, Dan, because like that is what happens within everyone, including myself. And those are the moments to really take notice of.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? They're the moments to really take notice of. Um, and
Yeah,
so,
and the biggest thing for me that's helped the most is just allowing myself to feel uncomfortable, like acknowledging it, like, okay, I feel uncomfortable right now, and that's fine.
yeah,
But what makes it worse is when you're feeling uncomfortable and you're like, I don't desire to feel this way. I wish I just felt comfortable,
yeah,
and it's just this spiral, and then you just feel worse and worse. But if you're like, if you can just like sit with that and say like, all right, like I feel uncomfortable right now, acknowledged, that's okay. Then it makes things so much easier.
definitely, dude. And like, based off what we've been talking about in this episode, it's like, can we can we acknowledge that we're all of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Can we be okay with the fact that we're all of it, right? And a question that I ask a lot of the time, that I heard that I really like is like, is it okay for this to exist also? Right. And so like in that moment, like you were saying, the exact same thing that you're doing, it's like, is it okay for this to exist right now? Right. And if the answer is no, chances are it's going to exist a lot longer than you want it to.
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then you'll see it kind of dissipate pretty quickly. If it's something that doesn't feel ultimately really, really nice. Um, and to kind of cap that conversation off, although everything, although we're okay with everything that is happening in this moment isn't always the best moment to do the work you want to do. So, like Dan said, feeling a certain way in that moment, probably not the best time to be like, oh, I don't want to feel this way. I want to feel this way. Right. Allow yourself to come back to a nice, like, balanced state. And then you can, like, start to feel into some other things or do some other things that you desire to work on. Right. I found that to be the most helpful. So, um, that's kind of, I mean, I feel like I've covered everything I want to cover. I guess like if I had one last thing that I'd want to share with people, it would be we are, this again, this is just my perspective, my experience. So like I feel like we are souls playing human and we're playing out this drama of good and evil, walking this journey and waking up to remember who we really are, right? And we wake up in moments. In this moment, I wake up to this. In this moment, I wake up to that, right? And we wake up in moments, and we're not always awake. Let's just say, let's just use this word. We're not always awake, and that's okay. Like Dan said, it's okay, man. Accept it. Can this exist too, right? And based on what we're talking about, the drama is real. The suffering is real, relative, and simultaneously, underneath it all, there is something that was never born, never dies, and has never once suffered. And that's just to bring in all of it, right? And so those two things live simultaneously. Our mind finds it hard to understand that because it wants one reality and truth, but our heart can completely understand and comprehend all of it and allow for all of it to be. And so, yeah, man, that feels good. I feel complete with that.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Um, yeah, again, there's not like, one solution to anything, and the more you talk about it, I think the better I feel, at least. So,
Yeah. 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 It's like when we want one thing to be the right or wrong way, or we want this to be the solution and that's the solution. It's just like, I think we get clouded and we're not able to truly love in the way that we desire to. And we get stuck. And so let's get unstuck. Love you, bro. Thanks, man. And thank you everyone for listening. Appreciate you. And we'll see you soon.
love you, brother.